Hello, Kellen here. Today we're going to cover how to create a topographic contour map using LiDAR data. To do this, we'll be using the open source Manifold GIS program. So let's open that up here. As you can see, I've got a blank folder here. So basically the first thing we're going to do is load up the parcel for the site. So to do that, we'll go to Drawing, go to our X drive here, and we go to our GIS folder. Let's see. X drive. Sorry, I keep navigating to the wrong folder. And in here we have our regional maps. And that contains county maps. Go to King County. We have parcel data here. So we'll select that, open it up. That's fine, import all of that. While that's loading up, we'll need to know the parcel number of our site. So right here I have King County IMAP open. I've navigated to the site. You can click on it here, comes up with parcel information. We'll go ahead and select that, copy, go back to our Manifold program. And once this is up, we'll be able to select our parcel in a little bar down here and navigate right to our site. Okay, now that that's open, we have this. We'll expand that. Down here in this bottom, this is the select tool. So we'll select by PIN, that's parcel identification number, and we'll set it to be equal to our parcel number, which we have in our clipboard. So we can paste that there, select, and then we'll use this little tool here, which allows us to zoom in to our particular area. We know we're in the Des Moines area. It's not highlighted very well here, so we'll go ahead and just kind of zoom into that selected range. And the parcel will be selected out here, outlined in a red. So we can zoom in on that. Now that we've selected our site, we can copy that and bring it into this tab. We'll paste it as a drawing. And we can rename that as our site, or how we like to do it, TAL 1804. Okay. Now that we have that, you can see that is singled out and it's in its own drawing, so we can change how that looks and manipulate it however we want. Our standard is usually a border size of 3. No interior here, which we select here. We like no background. For the foreground, we like a nice orange line there. Okay, so now that we have that, we are ready to download our LiDAR data. So we'll navigate to a website up here. It's the DNR LiDAR portal. That is accessed here by typing in lidarportal.dnr.wa.gov. This is basically a huge combination of all the LiDAR projects that have been shot in King County. It's maintained by Department of Natural Resources, and it's a great resource for us. So what we'll do here, to make it easier to navigate to our site, we'll hide all of those. We can navigate down here to Des Moines. The tough part is finding the site. So it's easier if you know how it looks with imagery, so you can go to the base map, change it to an image. Alright, we found the site here. So this is our site approximately. Now what we'll do is we'll select this here, select this area of interest, and it'll pull up LiDAR data only for the area that falls within this box. So circle the site, give it a pretty good range. You see here a little window pops up and we have options 2003, 2016. Now generally we like to use the newest LiDAR data available. It's higher resolution. So we'll deselect all, scroll down here to 2016, and we'll do the DTM. And it's important not to do the DTM hillshade because that actually doesn't have any elevation data associated with it. As you can see here, a surface model, and I can turn it on right here. The surface model will pick up everything. That's trees. It's the first return on the LiDAR data, so it's basically everything in the surface. Now, we don't want that obviously because it's not good for contours. Here you can see this is a bare earth model, and it shows much more detail in the terrain of the site. So we'll be using that. So again, what we'll do is select our area, pull that up, deselect all. We don't want 2003, we want the DTM. We'll download that. As you can see, pretty big file size, so you're going to want to make sure to save that appropriately. Luckily we have speedy internet, so that'll download fast. Okay, we can see that here. We'll show in folder. It's in our downloads folder. We can cut that and bring that into our project folder under a data tab. That'll keep all of our data organized in our project folder. So again, we're working project 1804, and we're in the GIS. We'll paste that in a new folder called data. Paste, extract all information. Okay, we now have that saved in our project. We can now import it into Manifold. To do that, we'll select Import here in the File tab, and we're importing a surface. So make sure it's surface, not drawing. We'll then navigate back to our project folder, 1804, GIS, data, download. Okay, quite a lot of folders there. That's just how it is with DNR's LiDAR portal. So notice this file type is a TIFF. So if you cannot find it, it's probably because the TIFF selection here is set as something else. So make sure this is set to TIFF. We can find that, open it up. It'll take a little while to load. Okay, now that's loaded up, we'll rename this as anything we want. Usually we can just leave it how it is actually. And what we'll do is we'll open up that LiDAR data, and as you can see, it's very interesting. It's just white and black. So the first thing we got to do is change the projection. As you can see here, you'll get this little bar up here that says the projection has not been verified. Click here to verify it. We'll go ahead and do that. And right now you can see it's set to orthographic. Now this actually comes in state plane south. That's NAD 83 state plane south, as does all projections and all LiDAR data in the DNR LiDAR portal. So everything you download from there will be set into the state plane south datum, despite the metadata saying north. So here you can see NAD 83 feet state plane. We'll go down to Washington. Okay, Washington South, Washington North. Washington South is what we're going to choose. Leave all of this just how it is. You don't want to modify any of it despite thinking, oh, well, the scale should be 1. Leave it where it's at. We'll click OK. Okay, that's great. Now it's projected in the right place in space. We still need to fix this issue of color. So to do that, we'll go to the View tab up here. Display options. Display in height, that's great. And we'll choose altitude in feet. Now once we select that, we'll go ahead and click this drop down arrow and basically put in the shading, the contours, and we'll click shading, leave all this how it is, press OK. Okay, now that pops up. Now as you can see here, there's no text information, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to actually find our site. Now I have a intuition that it's up here somewhere. But to really get it quickly, what we'll do is we'll create a map and we'll just throw our site over that. So here's our individual site and here's our LiDAR data. So we'll select those two to be in the same map. Once we have that, we can open that up and look at that. That's where the site lies. And it lines up perfectly. That's exactly what we want. So now that that's there, we can select just that portion of LiDAR data to use on our contours. That'll keep a lot of extraneous information out and help save with our data processing. So what we'll do here, to select just the LiDAR, we have to come down here to the bottom bar and actually click on the LiDAR. And that will basically allow us to select the LiDAR and not just select the site. So once we have that selected, we can go here to select box in this case, and we can go ahead and select just a box from the road to the edge of the site, just kind of like that. Backup data, generally I don't. Now that we have it here, we can use the Control-C function. Go ahead and Control-C in your keyboard, And then you can go over here to the project pane with your cursor. And what we'll do is we'll right click and we'll paste as surface. Okay, it'll pop up here. We can quickly check. Yep, looks like it cut it and pasted it right there. We can go ahead and unselect that by pressing this button right up here, the Select None tool. And now that we have it here, we can rename it something like LiDAR site. Okay, it's renamed. Now we can really start making our contours. So we'll use the Surface tab up here. We'll go down to Contours. Go ahead and select that. And we'll do Contour. And we'll start off with 2 foot. That's generally how we do it, especially on a site that is pretty topographically varied. And you can see down here basically the range and height, and that will help allow you to determine what kind of interval you want to look at. So you can see here our max height is about 268, our minimum height 97 feet. So we have a pretty good range there. So we want to start off with 2 foot. You see here in the height section there are these existing values. We do not want those. Those are kind of suggested. We just delete them. Right here there's an Add Sequence button. We want to use that, and what it allows us to do is select an offset for our contours to start at. Now basically what we want to do is offset it at the minimum height so that it will pick up that minimum height. The way we do that is we select a value just below that. I select 96. The step, that's basically the interval. So we'll go ahead and put a 2 there so that every 2 feet it creates a line. So okay. And we want to do this. See right here, this is areas between height. We actually want to select areas above heights. Okay, now that that's all set up, we don't really have to write a description. Go ahead and select OK. And immediately what it did is it put this new layer in our project pane called Contour 2 foot. First what we'll do is again go up to here. This is the line width, so the individual contour lines. We'll go ahead and select that to 1. This is the area border. Each one of these contours is an area, so the lines are essentially an area border. What we'll do there is select black. And now what we've got to do is actually manipulate the data of this file. So we'll go ahead and open up this little table here, Contour 2 foot table. And as you can see here, under the height column, it has kind of this extraneous data here, and that is basically a greater than symbol. So we'll go ahead and do height, delete first token. The first token is that greater than symbol. We'll apply that. As you can see, that gets rid of that. The next thing we'll have to do is right click on the height column itself, go down here to change type. Right now it's a text variable length. We actually want that to be a floating point single. So we'll go ahead and select that and press OK, and that narrows down the data even further. And now we can actually manipulate the data. So we have this open again, and we'll go here to area background. We'll select that. Use the theme button. The field should be set to height. The method is equal count. We actually, depending on the site, want to change this. For now, that's actually appropriate. The palette, our standard here at Talicia is blues and reds. Right here is your breaks. So as you can see here, each interval, there are going to be 16 intervals colored as that. So what we want is a little bit more separation of color and more colors in general. And we know we have, I believe it was around 50 heights. So what we'll do is go ahead and break that into maybe 25 to start. Once you hit that, you have to hit the tally button immediately afterwards. And then you can see it basically separates 3 areas per color at this point. 3 to 4. It's not really consistent, so we don't really want to use that. Let's try 30 and see how that breaks out. Again, hit tally. As you can see now, we are at 3. It's a bit more consistently 3. That's fine. We'll go ahead and set that. And what we'll do is hit this apply arrow, and that'll actually apply the color, the spectrum, to our areas. we can hit preview here to just preview how that will look. As you can see, we've kind of got the start of our contour map. So that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and click OK on that to lock it in. Now that we've got that colored, we can go ahead and bring that into our map. So you can see here we still have this. We can go ahead and deselect that. Backup data, no, not important. Okay. Now, as you can see, this broad LiDAR data is no longer really appropriate for this. We can go ahead and delete that from our map altogether. And we have our contour 2-foot here. We can drag that right into our map. So you just left click and drag, put it there. Great. As you can see, now it's part of our map. Now the contour layer is now overlain on top of the site layer. So to change this, we always want the contours to be at the back of whatever map we're working with, to be the last layer. Okay, so we go ahead and just drag it over and drop it on the other side of our site. And now you can see our site boundary with the contours underneath. So this is looking good. However, we don't have a legend or anything like that yet to really explain, what heights we're looking at, what kind of variation, etc. So the next step to all this is to create a layout where we'll be able to essentially add a north arrow, add a legend, a scale bar, etc. To do that, we'll go ahead and select this. Don't open the map, you don't have to, since it's already open, and we'll do create layout. Okay, create layout. It's going to ask for a parent. I just select that again, and you can change the name of the layout to be whatever you like, but I find that this is appropriate. So here it just popped up in our project pane under our map, which is the parent layout. Okay, now there's a problem with this layout, and that is that it is in a portrait orientation. If it were landscape, we'd be able to get a little bit larger area here to work with. So to change that, we'll go to File, Page Setup, Size Letter. That could be fine. What I like to do is, just for a little bit more detail, change it to an 11 by 17. And we'll landscape that, okay? And it'll automatically kind of pop in how to fit to the entire page. And for this situation, that's fine. If we didn't like that, we could select a view. And the way we select a view is we go back to our map, and we have this view pane here. Now, if we wanted to scale this to something appropriate, what we could do is, you see up here in the upper left corner, we have our actual scale. So right now we're at a scale that is 1 to 823-ish, 824. What we could do is make this a scale to be, 1 inch equals so many feet. To do that, we can change this to 1 divided by 1200. Now hit enter, and immediately that just put us there. So that is now 1 inch equals 100 feet. We can then go to our view pane and select New View. See, it just saved it here. That's fine. We could rename this as 1 to 1200. Okay, that's great. Once we've saved that view, we can then go back to our layout. So again, that's under Map. We'll select Layout. Now, what we have to do is first left click, then right click, Properties, change the scope from the entire component to View. And we have that view saved here as 1 to 1200. Now we could change that to whatever amount of views we have. So that's fine for now. We'll just leave it there. As you can see, it is very zoomed in, so maybe for this a letter page is actually more appropriate. And it fits pretty nicely there. The next thing we can do is up here in our bar we have an option to insert scale bars, north arrows, and a legend, text, boxes, lines, etc. The first thing we'll do is go ahead and insert a legend. So you select that, and you're given an option to select an area where your legend will be. Now we can do kind of a lengthwise legend like this. You can see here it inserted it vertically. So the way we'll deal with this, double click on the legend. We'll click Show Legend just so we can edit this information here. I like to give the legend a caption. We'll just call it, for now, map legend. And we'll make that a bold oblique font style, size 12. That's great. Okay. The next thing we'll do is hit this little customize legend box. And this will allow us to modify the orientation of this legend. Right now, as you can see, it's totally vertical. So what we need to do is add some breaks in here that will allow us to make it a little bit more horizontal, maybe 2 rows or 3 rows, depending on the size of your legend. So what I like to do is somewhere in the middle here, just select a value, and we'll do add element. As you can see, it added an element, and it defaulted to an element of text, which is also available to change here. So the type will change it from a text to a vertical separator with a line. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. So once we have that in there, we'll click the OK button. And as you can see, if you want, right now it's doubled up because we did this show legend. So we can just deselect that for a second. And you can see here that it split the legend in 2 and allowed us to make this a little bit more horizontal. It's uneven right now, so the way that we'll fix that is we'll again double click on the legend to bring up the properties. We'll hit show legend, and as you can see here, it looks like if we were to actually put the vertical separator a bit further down, we'd be able to move some of this information here down below. So we'll select that, and we'll use this little arrow here to move it down perhaps 2 spaces, maybe 3. Let's try that. Moved it down 3 spaces. Again, we'll click OK, and look at that. It went ahead and separated it evenly. As you can see here, we have 2 legends. So the way you get rid of the second legend is you double click on this one and unclick show legend. Now it's just got the legend that we inserted. So we'll go ahead and add that and kind of set it up nicely on the page so that it doesn't interfere with any of these. We can change this so that it's a little bit more out of the way by selecting it and holding Control and Alt at the same time and clicking with the left click at the same time, and it'll open up this property menu. And basically what that allows you to do is change the size and location of whatever item you selected. You can do this with legends, lines, anything. It's a very useful kind of shortcut. Again, that's holding Control and Alt and clicking on whatever object you're interested in manipulating. So we'll go ahead and just put that right here. Okay, now what we're going to do is add in a north arrow and a legend. So again, similar to how we inserted the legend, we'll go ahead and add a north arrow, and you can just click and drag kind of a box, and bam, it'll pop in an arrow right there. That's great. We can deselect that, and we can insert a scale bar. We select that, and again, it's one of these things you have to create a box. Okay, and to manipulate this, because right now it's showing greater than a foot, so it's not very useful. So you double click on that to open up the properties. Similar to the legend, again, you just manipulate that by double clicking. We'll hit this little box here that says show scale bar. Right now the style is line, and that's fine, but it doesn't really show up all that well, and it's not my favorite. So what I like to do is drag down the style and select composite bar. It gives you some breaks here in between to do some measurements on smaller scales. We'll go ahead, and here is the display. So right now it's displaying 1 foot. As you can imagine, on a site this big, 1 foot is going to be very, very small length. So we'll go ahead and change this to 100 feet for now, just to test out what that'll look like. Okay, and we can also change this right now because the default for the text size on the scale bar is pretty small. So to change that, hit the ABC. Again, look at set to 8. So we'll go ahead and just set it to 12. You can choose whatever font you want. This is fine. And make sure everything else is looking good. You could bold it if you want. I won't. That's fine. And then you select OK. and there, it popped up there. So the next thing we'll do is, again, hold Control and Alt and left click to manipulate the location. We'll go ahead and shorten this up a little bit since it's using not using all the box. Okay, go ahead and select that. Next we'll just a single left click on here, then we'll Control Alt left click, and we'll kind of just maneuver this so that it rests right on top of that, just to give a little bit more graphic appeal. As you can see here, this is also popped up over here again. Whenever you see that, what's going on is that when you double click, this box is selected. As soon as I unselect that box, zoom back out, it's gone. And that's how we want it. And now what we'll do is just kind of put some finishing touches on this. You can insert text. We'll give this figure a title. I select a text box up here. And what we can do here is say Tau 1804. Press the enter button. And we'll just say, we'll call this 2-foot contour lines. Okay. We'll select OK. Now that we've created this text, you can see that it kind of centered it here, and again, it's very small. So what we'll do here is zoom in, single left click, and we'll open it up, and you can see the size of the text is set at 9. Since it's a title, we'll set it at 14. We'll set it to be bold, and we'll left justify. And you can see here, again, we can use the Control-Alt-Click method to kind of just close in this box a little bit, since we don't need all that space. Well, you can just left-click outside to exit that. And this figure is basically complete. Let's just look over the legend, make sure everything's looking good. Okay, now that this is a complete figure, we can export it. So all we do for that is we'll actually just hit the print button, and we'll print it to our PDF. And as you can see, something strange might happen here as soon as we print this. Okay, I was unable to save this as a PDF. So what I had to do was print this as a hard copy to our Canon printer and scan it in and open it up that way. And that's just an FYI with these LiDAR contour maps. Generally is very difficult to print to a PDF.